Hey guys, it's the Diecast Man here, bringing you guys another video. Today we're going to be doing a comparison between, on the left we have the 1/18 scale Ferrari 488 GTB made by Bburago Signature Series, so it's like that extra step up above the regular Bburago cars. And then on the right we have the 1/18 scale Hot Wheels, not Hot Wheels Elite, but Hot Wheels Ferrari LaFerrari. This is going to be a comparison video to see how the two cars stack up together in detail and in price, so let's get into it. Alright, so like I mentioned, we'll start off with the 488 first. This is like the step above, the next tier above the Bburago cars. If you didn't know, Bburago and Maisto are basically the same company, but Maisto doesn't have, they call most of their regular cars Signature Series, like it's super fancy, but Bburago actually has the Signature Series, which is the actual step up, so maybe that's why Maisto doesn't do it, because it would kind of defeat the purpose, but Maisto and Bburago are pretty much the same company. This 488 is a really, really nice model. If you want to see it more in depth, you can go watch my review of this car. I think there's an unboxing too. I will link both in the description below. But the thing that stood out to me the most on this car, and I can't really compare it to the LaFerrari that much, but the paint on this car is amazing. Really, really good. There's a metal, actual metal logo right there, which is really, really nice. But the detail on this car is excellent. You can see that the discs do spin through the calipers, which is really, really nice. So, this is a really, really good model. I usually do my comparisons when taking a look at the interior. I think that sort of best replicates everything. But let's take a look. You can see that everything is colored in. You got the red tack there, the silver paddles looks really, really good. All the buttons on the center stack there are colored in. All the buttons on the wheel are colored in. It looks really, really good. You can even see the like the JBL speakers down there. They have like the exact same pattern that the JBL ones in the real cars do. The seats are a little bit hard to see, primarily because the doors do not open far. I mean, like, look at that. They barely open, but that's neither here nor there. These seats are really, really nice. They're plasticky. They're very firm, but they are plastic, and they're really, really in there, which is good. And overall, it's a really good. There's no crazy textures. It's all just plastic. But this is not too expensive of a model. I think it's around that $50 range, and they can probably be had for a lot less than that. But so hopefully that gives you kind of a quick little summary of the detail and of the level that this car is at. We'll move over to the LaFerrari. This is the Hot Wheels LaFerrari. The discs do spin through the calipers, which is really, really nice. They flow really well. The wheels look really, really good on this car, and I think that this is probably right around the same price. You can correct me in the comments section. I think that this is like the same price as that, right about that $50, $60 range or so. But the paint on this car is really good, as it should be. It's like a matte black. It looks really, really good. The sculpting on the taillights is really good, too. It's really three-dimensional. I'll wait for the camera to focus. But it's really three-dimensional right there. And the exhaust tips, too, you can even see that they bother to have those dots in the texture there. See if the camera will focus onto those. Those, like, dots at the end of the exhaust pipes that a lot of those Ferraris have. And the engine detail is, yeah, not that great. This is all you get to see. Nothing opens up, which is unfortunate. But it's kind of just a big plastic piece, and you can see like the gray plastic below where the actual cylinders are. That just exemplifies that it is just a big piece of plastic. The interior is also something that is quite interesting. There's really not that much detail going on in here. I remember being kind of disappointed. There's a lot more detail in the 488, like a universe ahead of this car. The seats are just these like super, super flimsy, plasticky, rubbery things. I'm not a big fan of them. But you can see that nothing is really colored in. It's just the Prancing Horse logo there on in the center of the wheel, and then the tack up there, which is kind of disappointing. I think there might be a tiny little bit of coloration. Sorry for the camera, but there might be a tiny little bit of coloration there on the wheel on another spot. And then you have the LaFerrari logo on the dash right there. But really just not that much going on in here, as you can see. The plastic is all sculpted really well, but nothing's colored in, and you know that buttons being colored in is like the big thing, that all the cars have to have. But the weights of these two models are interesting as well. These two, the LaFerrari weighs just a little bit more than the 488 does, and I know that that's kind of like a big thing for some people. And don't get me wrong, having a hefty weight to a model is a really nice feeling. But you also, another thing to keep in mind too is that on some of well, actually most of the Maistos and the Buragos, the suspension that they put on there allows the wheels to kind of have this camber out, and there's no real working suspension on the LaFerrari at all. And that is kind of to its own benefit because the wheels stay perfectly flush. You know what I mean? Like on some Maisto cars, I'll show you in a second with the 488, but there's really not. They really don't move at all, which is really nice. So you don't end up having like this weird sagging, cambered LaFerrari or cambered 488 or whatever. Except we do kind of have a cambered 488. And it's going to be a little bit difficult to show on camera, but if I just pick this car up and then put it down, you can kind of see how the wheels, yeah, just like that, the wheels just kind of sag out a little bit. And Bburago and Maisto have always done that, and that comes at the expense of this suspension. And the suspension is really good. It feels really nice. But on all the cars, especially on the back wheels, they have this like weird kind of camber thing where they just sag a little bit. It's difficult to show, but if you have a Maisto car, which you probably do, you kind of know what I'm talking about. And not all of them are like that, but a good percentage of them are. And that's definitely another benefit over this car, over the LaF is that it doesn't have the suspension. And it flows really well. It looks really good, looks really low while it's sitting there. Whereas the 488 kind of has the little bit of the stance issues. But in terms of detail, the 488 is definitely a lot better. But this car kind of feels like a more substantial model, if that makes sense. This car you can still see is kind of cheap. They didn't use any new materials. It looks really good, but they didn't use any different materials. It's just plastic on the inside, but everything is colored in. But this car, nothing is colored in, but there are new materials. It sits a lot better than this car does, like I was just talking about with the suspension. So that's really up to you. Like I said, I think both of the cars are in the same sort of price range, right about that $50, $60 mark. You can't really go wrong in either direction. I mean, if it comes down to, would you rather have a LaFerrari or would you rather have a 488 as a model, I would pick the LaFerrari all day long. But the 488 definitely has a really good presence to it, and it looks very sharp. Whereas the LaF, it's hard to explain. The detail on the outside is really good, but the detail on the inside is not that good. So that's a good way of putting it. But by no means is the 488 a bad model. By no means is the LaF a bad model. So hopefully that was a good kind of comparison for you guys, and hopefully it answered any questions that you might have. If it did not, leave them down in the comments section below. And any other suggestions for future videos, I would absolutely love to hear them, so you can leave them down there as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it's the Diecast Man, signing off.